This is the first reason for the silence, the decision to invest the little strength they had into the present. The second reason is the special attitude survivors had to their children, my generation, the second generation. I did not speak to my parents, and actually I never spoke to them to the end. My parents are both dead now. My father was 90 when he died, and till today I know nothing about the route he went through during the Second World War. I don't even know how many brothers and sisters he had. Our history started with my birth. Whatever happened before that never existed in their stories. I know that in some families they did not talk about what actually happened during the war, but they would tell stories about their childhood or the time before that. My parents didn't even do this. There was this complete, total silence over the history before I was born. And so I did not speak with my parents, but I did speak to other survivors. And whenever it came to the subject of the children, they would choose vocabulary like miracle, it's a wonder, and this miracle needed protection. And I believe that my generation in Israel, and I believe elsewhere, was overprotected. I remember that when there were trips in school outside of the city, then half the children of survivors wouldn't show up. And if there was an overnight stay somewhere, then I wasn't sent as well. Survivors wouldn't let their children get as far away as the next city. So this is the second reason for the silence. This particular relationship with their children, and it was a kind of a protecting act. Things that you do not talk about, your children do not learn about, and they would believe that the world is a better place than it is. The third reason is a very Israeli one, and it has to do with the way survivors were accepted when they came to Israel. In Israel, since the turn of the century, they tried to build a kind of a model, a new man that was everything the survivor was not. He was brave, he was upright, and when the survivors started coming after the war, this new man was embarrassed. He didn't know how to react. And the thing was that they were not interested in the stories of the survivors. When survivors started telling their stories, they were not listening, and they didn't believe to what they heard. So this was, for many survivors, this was the reason they kept silent. I need to see you, but I remember I was listening to Amos Oz once. His book, A Panther in the Basement, or in the Cellar, came out in Israel, and he was talking about that time in the 40s, when the late 40s, when survivors started coming, and he pictured sort of a priority of importance of the people. And he said at the top there were the intellectuals, and then there were the merchants and the workers, and these, and then there were the madmen of Jerusalem, and then there were, he didn't even say Holocaust survivors, he said refugees. So in a very visual way I could understand where my parents and their generation was placed through the eyes of a 9-year-old who internalized what the grown-ups around him was thinking. and so that they were treated well, arrogantly. There were nicknames invented for them, and it was definitely one of the reasons they did not speak. Another reason is the sense of shame. Most of them spoke European languages and Yiddish. Yiddish was forbidden by law then, at that time. And I remember that when it came to, there was the home of survivors that looked completely European. The furniture, the languages, the kitchen, the dishes were all European. And once you crossed the threshold, there was the Israeli reality that was something completely different. And at that place, parents were asked to speak Hebrew, a language that they did not master. So this was that reason of the shamefulness of children in their parents.